In the interest of seeing other stances on the story for Marvel's Spider-Man 2, I came across this video that addresses major criticism towards the game. Insomniac's Peter wasn't nerfed, you're media illiterate. Okay, so I watched this video and I'm gonna be honest, I think it meanders a lot and fails to adequately address the examples people use. With that said, I do have a section in my video on the game where I discuss the examples of nerfing for both Peter and Miles, which I do recommend watching for useful context. I also want to clarify the definition of nerfing that I use when criticizing the game. Nerfing refers to when a character, item, or ability is reduced in effectiveness without a sensible in-universe justification. A clear example of this is when Peter, in the black suit, is incapable of dodging an electric blast when Peter has consistently dodged Electro's attacks in the first game, even when he's injured with 14 broken bones. Another example is when Miles almost dies to Sandman because he forgets how to stick to walls to avoid falling. Now this should go without saying, but please do not harass the creator, keep all the disagreements respectful. With that said, let's take a look at the defenses this person makes.
Alright, so look, I realized a lot of people genuinely think that Peter Parker was quote unquote nerfed in Spider-Man 2. Like Insomniac did it to just make Miles look like the superior Spider-Man. So I replayed this game specifically to prove to you that he wasn't nerfed, that he was tired, he was burnt out.
I know this is early into the video, but I want to address this premise real quick. Peter Parker has performed much better in the first game when he had bad sleep and 14 broken bones. Now an argument I've seen from people is that this is before May died, but if we look at the City That Never Sleeps DLCs, which is even sooner after Aunt May died, there isn't a noticeable decline in Peter's performance. He can still dodge bullets as he normally does. He can still contend with Hammerhead as a cyborg. He can still dodge lasers. In the Miles Morales game, Peter also doesn't noticeably decline in his performance. He can still contend with Rhino and maneuver him without instantly being knocked out. He has to face an explosion right in his face to even reach that point. He even faces a second explosion immediately afterwards, and he still remains in the fight in spite of this.
I'm okay. I've got him. Headed your way. Be ready.
And even when Peter gets knocked out, it's not for a full night like what happens in Marvel's Spider-Man 2 after one throw. He wakes up soon after Miles wins the fight and swings away soon after. So right off the bat, I'm not accepting the argument that Peter performs worse because he's burnt out or because he's grieving, which I've heard other people say.
Honestly, I think people saying this whole thing about him being nerfed, like skipped the cutscenes and only paid attention when they were playing as Peter Parker. And that's the problem. You don't even try to engage with the media you're interacting with. Rather, you just shut your brain off and get dopamine hits every time you push square.
That seems like a weird assumption to make about everyone who believes in a story criticism. Sure, there are definitely some people out there who don't care to engage in good faith, but many people who do think Peter is nerfed do, especially fans of the prior games. And can't we just reverse the accusation here? I can just say that you didn't even try to engage with the criticism you're responding to. Like, it's annoying when people make unfounded assumptions, right?
So with that being said, I'm gonna break down how almost every cutscene proves Peter wasn't nerfed, how Miles isn't taking his place permanently, why you think Peter got nerfed, and I'm gonna show you that I know you weren't paying attention. Let's get into it.
Let's give the people what they came for.
Let's fucking go.
Okay, so let's start with the first game. I know that probably makes no sense to you because you're probably like, why would we start with the first game and talk about the second game? That's stupid. Well, if you're not 6 years old, you know what storytelling is. Anyway, Peter starts this game laying down, probably from a hard night of being Spider-Man. You see a pan shot of like his room, and not gonna lie, this is like the most Asmongold levels of disgusting I've ever seen.
This is what I mean by how this video meanders. How is any of this relevant to whether or not it makes sense for Peter to perform weaker? None of this will explain the fridge problem. None of this will explain the cane problem. None of this will explain why Peter is nerfed in the black suit that is meant to physically increase him. I'll let it play out just to prove this, but you'll eventually get the point.
But unlike Asmongold, I'm sure the neglect of his room is a reflection of how exhausted Peter is. You know, anyone who leaves food out like this typically is going through some shit. And people like this aren't just disgusting people to be disgusting people. They typically are so occupied with something, like mentally especially, they don't have the energy to deal with things like this.
Well, clearly Peter did, judging by his performance in the game. Again, the idea behind nerfing is that he performed better in his first game than in his second game without a sensible in-universe justification.
But anyway, Peter gets a notification that Fisk is up to some shit, and what does he do? He rushes out of bed and dons his costume. without a care in the world for the most part. However, we also see his Spider-Manning is catching up with him. Along with his dirty ass room, we get his landlord slipping past rent due letters under his door. So we see that despite his eagerness to be Spider-Man and that it's still there, it's taking a toll on him.
No way. You mean to tell me that being a superhero takes a toll on a struggling guy who just got out of college? Yeah, we know this. We played a mission where he had to find his stuff after getting evicted. Again, what does this have to do with if Peter was nerfed?
We don't meet Peter in his prime here. This is a Peter who's pretty much settled into his routine already.
That makes it worse when Peter makes very stupid decisions in this game that you'd expect a rookie to make. He has 8 years of experience in his first game, while he has 10 in the second game, and he performs way worse in the second game.
We see him acknowledging the bills, but choosing to jump out of the window anyway, to save the day. No hesitation. No sighs, no huffs and puffs, just a leap and a swing. This is such a great intro, especially when you take into account the music they're playing here. Now, this song is called Alive. See, this song is a banger, but did any of you actually listen to the lyrics here?
I don't think you should have to listen to song lyrics to determine if Peter was nerfed in the second game. When addressing inconsistencies in power scaling or intellect, I expect references from the story, not song lyrics that aren't integral to understanding these games. Now, he's gonna play this song so we can hear the lyrics, but I'm not gonna show that to avoid copyright issues, so let's just jump to his analysis.
Now, I feel like I'm taking crazy pills here because this song is literally about Peter, and nobody paid attention to that.
Okay, that's great. The lyrics suiting Peter's story doesn't have anything to do with whether or not there is evidence of him being nerfed. We're 3 minutes into the video, and no examples are being countered or even addressed in detail. It's time to get moving.
Do you think the devs just chose this song because it sounded cool?
No, but I think the devs didn't choose this song thinking it would justify their action sequences in the second video game that's coming 5 years later.
I mean, anyway, listen, let's jump into the Spider-Man 2 intro. So here we see Peter rush into class, looking so happy to have a job. He's in his real element here. Teaching, changing the world by shaping young minds. You know, that of which Peter wants to do all throughout this game. But we'll get there. Now, we see Peter in his best youth pastor get up, but they show us a scene where Miles communicated to Peter that he's wearing his Spider-Man suit under his outfit, and he quickly covers it up. Now, did you catch the symbolism, or did you just think it was a cool scene to show that, hey, he's Spidey-Man? No, it's literally to show that he's keeping Spider-Man under wraps here. He wants to present himself one way, but Spider-Man is always underneath.
Sorry, what? Yeah, we know this. Spider-Man has a secret identity. As much as this game tends to forget that, we surely didn't. So how does this address any of the nerfing issues people have?
He wore the suit just in case, but clearly he doesn't want to have to use the suit, as proven by this scene.
We know Peter doesn't want to be Spider-Man right now. This is a struggle he has in the first game, when his commitments get interrupted by Spider-Man's responsibility. How does this address the nerfing issues people have?
Going back a bit, I noticed the only reason the spiders come outside in the first place is because Miles' spider sense goes off here.
Miles can just run right across the pond?
And that's weird, right? Why didn't Peter's go off?
No. It's because the sand particles are randomly appearing, and he saw this. That's not spider sense, that's called having eyes.
You're telling me he didn't see the sand coming through the window?
He's not looking outside the window, he's focused on the students and his lesson plans.
See, I think he did. And I think he wanted Miles to take care of it, and only came out due to Miles saying that he needed him.
Peter doesn't know about Sandman yet, that's why he's surprised when he sees Sandman show up, and that's what causes him to intervene.
And two things here. One, Miles is acknowledging he's not up to Peter's level yet. So you weirdos can stop trying to say Miles feels buffed compared to Peter, because he himself acknowledges he's still the mentee.
Well, I think both of them are nerfed, but this isn't a good counterpoint. Just because Miles feels this way at the start of the game, doesn't mean Miles wasn't buffed as a character, as the entire point about buffing is their performance, which isn't even my position anyway because Miles is also nerfed.
Also, I don't know why you're so obsessed with Miles being put in like this weird second place. I can think of a few reasons, but you don't want to go down the rabbit hole with me. Two, Peter needed that job, and he was probably hoping Miles could take care of it alone. This right here shows Peter's faith in Miles, even if he didn't fully believe it himself, or was just self-aware enough to know that Marco was way too big of a threat.
Okay, Peter had faith in Miles, therefore that justifies him being nerfed during several action sequences, which by the way, the same action sequences where he should be calling Miles for backup when lives are at stake, but he doesn't for some odd reason.
Next, we see Peter fighting the mini San Marcos, and bro's going absolute ham, even when Miles calls him, but then he gets a call from Principal Evans. Things are okay until she asks,
Where are you?
After this, he starts to get swarmed by those San Marcos. Now you're probably thinking, yeah, this is the point where he begins to get nerfed. Do you not see that he's getting overwhelmed with the situation?
So here's a suggestion. Maybe don't pick up a call while you're distracted with Sandman endangering the city, and you need constant information from Miles to remain focused. Now if Peter was smart, he'd realize that he can use the sand creatures as an excuse for why he couldn't reach the students and use Miles' request for help as his explanation for why he left to begin with. All you've shown here is that Peter is stupid.
Not necessarily just physically, but emotionally. He wanted that job, but he had to pull himself out of class to deal with Marco. He's caught between two worlds here, literally, and it's getting to him. Tell me you like empathy and haven't had any real world responsibilities in your life without telling me, right?
I don't think people lack empathy for highlighting an inconsistency in Peter's intelligence. We're talking about a Spider-Man story here, and if the writing makes sense.
But anyway, here's a scene that I've seen used in the argument that Peter was nerfed. Here we see Peter getting swatted out of the sky. And okay, listen, I get it. Where's the Spidey sense, right? Well, look at this. Where the f is Peter gonna go here?
So first of all, Peter can swing on Sandman's arm instead of taking the hit. How do you think Spider-Man contends with Electro and Vulture at the same time? By dodging them using his environment in the air. Second of all, Peter shouldn't be trying to punch a giant Sandman in the face to begin with. Sandman is impervious and Peter has years of experience fighting him. From the first encounter, he should know that punching Sandman wouldn't work.
This is like a split second happening and bro just has to take the hit here.
Spider-Man can dodge bullets point blank, and you're telling me he has to be hit by a slow-moving giant?
Now, Peter can take a hit for sure, but he still feels it. He's not faking for the villain's sake, so he's dazed. And then comes the arms coming to like pull him under the sand, right? But let's analyze this for a second. Sandman's attack was a natural disaster level event. We're talking skyscraper sized, citywide destruction, and a completely unhinged Sandman splitting himself into dozens of different forms, like I said. Getting buried in that chaos wasn't about Peter being weak, it was about showing the magnitude of the threat. Even the most powerful motherfucker can get caught off guard when the battlefield itself turns against them.
Sandman being a greater threat doesn't justify obviously stupid decisions that one of the smartest superheroes out there, with 10 years of experience, would know are stupid decisions. He's a scientist who was aware of sand being vulnerable to electricity. Why didn't they think to use Miles' electricity powers on the way to Sandman? They would have thought of this straight away if they were actually smart, which they for some reason aren't in this game. It's like if Peter teamed up with Hydro Man and didn't think to use water to weaken Sandman. That's how embarrassing his performance is.
And look closer, dude. Peter wasn't alone in getting tossed around. Miles struggled too. The difference is Peter took point. He went in first, took the brunt of the initial attacks, and held Sandman off long enough for Miles to regroup and push forward. That's leadership. That's not a downgrade here.
That's not leadership. That's stupidity. If Peter was a smart leader, he'd know to take advantage of Sandman's weaknesses and instruct his mentee to utilize it. But he doesn't for no reason.
If anything, the fact that Peter got back up after being buried alive in a collapsing construction zone and still fought through the mission proves he's probably tougher than ever right here.
He shouldn't have been slapped down in the first place. That's the issue.
He didn't lose power, he just faced an enemy operating at an absurd scale. And yeah, this scene is meant to show that Miles is becoming a decent Spider-Man, but this isn't meant to show Peter's weaknesses. Rather, it's meant to show Peter's overextended strength.
That doesn't show his strength, it shows that he's an idiot.
And perseverance, and Miles' rise into the role. Miles helps him. Nigga, the tagline of this game is better together, not Miles is better than Peter, nigga. This to me just shows that they need each other. We already saw Miles needing Peter, now Peter needs Miles. It's like a natural progression. I think this scene is more symbolic of a torch passing than a Peter is so weak and helpless moment. You're just too far up your own ass to see that Peter quite literally isn't Superman. He's vulnerable to all the same shit most regular humans are. He just happens to have powers.
Yeah, that's kind of the important part. He has powers. We saw him use them in the first game more effectively than he does in this game.
Another scene I see often pointed to in how Peter was nerfed is when he's hit by a lightning bolt as he attempts to punch Sandman. People said that he was able to dodge electricity in the first game. Now, excuse me, did bro not just dodge multiple mini tornadoes?
Peter had 14 broken bones in the first game and still dodged Electro's attacks. This is inarguably a nerf.
See, I think what's happening here is that he's not thinking.
Ah yes, because Peter Parker is infamous for not thinking when he's fighting for people's lives.
I think he wants this fight to be over as quickly as possible so he can get on with his life.
That's just about about every fight with Spider-Man, including the one where he took on Vulture and Electro at the same time and kept dodging their attacks. How is this a meaningful counter?
I think this is like almost a kill shot punch for him, or at least he's too annoyed to really think about what he's doing and doesn't fully have a plan right now.
Then I don't know what to tell you. He's an idiot. He's meant to be a scientific genius, so he would know that sand is weak to electricity. He knows that Miles has electric powers. He has been Spider-Man for 10 years, constantly strategizing and relying on creative tactics. Yet he doesn't have a plan because he's annoyed at the situation. I'm sorry, how are these good defenses? How are we the media illiterate ones when you're unironically arguing that Peter doesn't have a plan because he just didn't feel like it? Does that sound like Spider-Man to you at all? Well, there's this one version.
You're saying the lives of a billion strangers are more important than my loved ones?
He's distracted, he's emotional, and he just goes for it.
Spider-Man doesn't think is gonna be a new meme now, isn't it?
Yes, Spidey sense should have kicked in, but let me know if I'm wrong, and I know you will because you're Spider-Man fans, but doesn't Spidey sense only work when the writers need it to?
Dude. Come on, you know that his spider sense should have kicked in because that's how his powers are established to work. If your response to inconsistencies is that the writers needed this to happen, then you're not refuting that there are in fact inconsistencies. And I don't understand this logic that writers are forced to have inconsistent spider sense. You can fix these moments in isolation. You can start by not having Peter trying to punch a giant sand creature multiple times when he knows that will never work. The issue wouldn't be there if he didn't do that. A better way to generate stakes would be to have Sandman recover after Miles attacks him. So the challenge becomes generating more energy from Miles to ensure Sandman's defeat.
Yeah, man, I think he's just very distracted here.
By what? The fight is his only objective right now.
Miles does something very similar later down the line, but we'll get there. Peter actually gets hit another time by lightning as he and Miles are trying to wrap up the fight. However, this time it's a bit different. And yes, if you're looking at things with just your eyes, he gets hit and that's another point to him being nerfed, right? But if you're media literate, you'll see what happens 5 seconds later. The same thing that took Peter out for a bit is the same thing that empowered Miles.
Okay, how does that negate the criticism that Peter is nerfed? He still should have dodged it. Miles wants to be hit by lightning so he can power himself up.
Him getting empowered here is more of a symbol than anything. It shows the city right now needs Miles. No, I get the argument here. It's a bit egregious that he keeps getting electrocuted, but I think each hit serves a purpose and it's not just done to quote unquote nerf Peter.
It doesn't matter what their intent was. The claim is that Peter was nerfed. You agreed that his spider sense should have enabled him to avoid it. So he is nerfed in the scene.
It's all meant to show that again, Peter is tired. He's not thinking straight.
So he's an idiot.
Fast forwarding a bit, we see Peter getting fired from his job on his first day.
Principal Evans.
Yeah. Guess who decided to show up today?
I'm sure there will be a purpose to this.
Now combine that with the fact that he was damned if he did help Miles and damned if he didn't. This scene is honestly peak Spider-Man, showing the consequences of his actions. See, I genuinely don't understand the nerf argument because Spider-Man was created to be the everyman superhero.
So your next counter is that he faces consequences and that he's meant to be an everyman. Okay, that's great. This can be said about every leading version of Spider-Man. That doesn't mean he wasn't nerfed in the scene.
He's not Superman.
Nobody's asking him to be Superman. You don't need to be Superman to know that punching Sandman is dumb, because Spider-Man knows this.
He takes punches both literally and metaphorically, and as humans we can only take so much punching. Getting fired from a job you just started and were excited about and especially competent in, it can kill anyone's spirits.
That doesn't mean he loses his powers. What is this argument?
He's got a responsibility to his city and to his students. He can't choose both, and one side of his life suffers. This is what being Spider-Man costs him.
Why is this relevant to his combat performance?
After getting fired, Miles calls Peter and tells him about an open photo call at the New York Bulletin.
Hey, sorry about the job. You weren't the worst teacher we've ever had, if that helps.
Think I can put that on my resume?
Well, listen, there's an open photo call at the New York Bulletin. I just sent a shot in yesterday. It's not much money, but it's money.
That's Robbie Robertson's paper. We used to work together at the Bugle. I think I know just what he'd like. Thanks, Miles.
But I think digging deeper, this is about Peter connecting with his hobbies and life outside of Spider-Man.
What on earth does this have to do with whether or not Peter was nerfed?
One aspect of Peter that I've always loved is his penchant for photography. As a photographer myself, photography is almost like meditation. It's a very thoughtful practice, one that's perfect for relaxation and the type of thing that Peter needs at this stage in his life. I genuinely feel as though this game, in every cutscene, at least in the main story, tells the journey of Peter Parker needing a break, but you hoes don't want to listen to me.
Peter already knows he can take a break if he needs to. He did this for 3 weeks in the Miles Morales game, and they literally have a talk about taking turns when needed.
Hey, Miles. MJ's flying into JFK next Tuesday. You mind covering patrol for me?
No problem.
Thanks for covering Manhattan while I'm in DIY mode.
Hey, my pleasure. What's the point of having 2 Spider-Men if they don't coordinate work schedules?
I heard that.
They want Peter to be this like weird ubermensch of man, and while he physically is, he's also 25 years old. He's a 25-year-old man, mentally and emotionally. Everyone needs a break, even Superman.
Okay, but you acknowledge the distinction between his powers and Peter wanting a break. So why is this relevant to the criticism of his combat performance?
Now we cut to Peter bringing MJ into Aunt May's, now Peter's house. We see again how Peter hasn't had time to clean up, as evidenced by him playing Asmongold 2025 simulator. Now we'll bring up MJ soon, but I want to mention the part where he brings up the fact that May was in debt. She mortgaged the house to keep Feast afloat, and this too is another example of sacrificing one side of your life to help another. It's poetic in that she sacrificed her well-being for others. It seems like the Parker generosity was alive and well in her too. But this also means that Peter is now in debt as well. So not only does he get fired, he lost May recently, and now he has debt to attend to.
Okay, that's great. What does this have to do with Peter being nerfed? I think you all get the point by now. I've shown more than enough examples that so much of this video is meandering on things that aren't relevant to the criticism of Peter being nerfed. With that said, I'm gonna start skipping around to when actual examples are being addressed. Well, before we get there, he makes a very strange point after going on a tangent where he recounts the obvious from the cutscene about balance.
He's never been one to half-ass anything, but again, everyone has their limit. Instead of being good at everything, like being a good boyfriend and mentor and even Spider-Man, he became good at nothing. And don't get me wrong, he was still decent in those things, but it was enough of a falter to notice a difference. Others noticed it. He noticed it. So no, he wasn't nerfed.
This doesn't follow. Peter isn't nerfed because he struggles with balance? That's not a counter to anything people bring up.
And even if it was a narrative choice. They're telling a story here.
So even if they did nerf Peter, it's fine because it's a narrative choice and they're telling a story? Here's an idea. Maybe tell the story without nerfing Peter so that the writing makes sense as well.
I don't know how you guys don't understand that. When you people say he was nerfed, there's like zero nuance in that take. You just want to be able to essentially be a never get hit Spider-Man.
No, that's a straw man. Peter shouldn't be getting hit by things he's capable of avoiding without an in-universe justification. In the third act of the first game, Peter's lapses in performance were justified by his major injuries. What's the justification for this happening in the entire game, even in the black suits?
And anytime he takes a hit, you lose your fucking mind.
If it's from something he shouldn't be hit by, then it's a problem. Would you be fine with the Flash getting hit by a fat guy swinging a golf club because it's a narrative choice and they're telling a story? I would hope not.
No, I know people love to say how amazing Peter was in the first game. And you know, you're not wrong. However, he loses his mentor, the one person who Peter felt close to aside from his aunt and MJ.
That's not a nerf. Peter was betrayed by someone he trusted. How exactly is that nerfing?
But no, Peter has been Spider-Man for 10 years. 10 whole years.
Lots happened in the last 10 years.
Have any of you saying Peter was nerfed ever done anything for 10 years straight and still had the same enthusiasm as year 1? No?
No one is arguing that Peter should be more enthusiastic about being Spider-Man. Who are you arguing with? People are saying that he performs worse than he did before without any sensible reasoning. You say that people didn't try engaging with the story while not engaging with the core arguments that people are even making.
Let's skip forward to a point that also gets brought up when people say Peter was nerfed. Peter getting stabbed and killed by Craven in the zoo. People claim that Peter should have been able to like stop or at least detect that he was about to be stabbed, but like, you guys know that Craven isn't a regular human, right?
So I had to skip like 20 minutes of the video to get to an actual example. Maybe I lost count somewhere. I don't know. Spider-Man can still sense people that aren't regular humans. Also, Peter knew to keep his distance from Doc Ock, who has 4 metal arms with a total of 16 blades. He only got stabbed after his web shooters broke, and he already got fatigued in a fight with Otto. And again, this is while he has 14 broken bones. But now, he can't prepare for someone just pulling out a knife?
Is that a real knife? Yes, it's a real knife. My weakness, it's small knives. Oh, it's so simple.
And yeah, Peter can be all types of badass, but like, Craven isn't a pushover here. He kills Peter's ops extremely easily. It even talks shit in the process.
This one was a waste of my precious remaining time. Weak of body and mind. Perhaps this technology will be of use.
You're telling me it was so hard for you to believe that Peter got stabbed?
Yes, because he would have prepared for this. He literally knew that Kraven killed Scorpion, so he should be prepared for this.
In the comics, he gets buried alive by Kraven. Was he nerfed then too?
No, he wasn't. There's a mountain of context that you just didn't include in your video. For starters, Peter is tired due to not sleeping well and is likely sick with the flu. There's nothing in Spider-Man 2 that implies Peter was sleep deprived or sick. But furthermore, Peter does dodge the first shot, and due to his fatigue, he gets hit by the second. The story even says that under normal circumstances, Peter should be able to dodge that, but because he didn't, he was poisoned with a potion that weakened his body. So this is already a bad comparison.
Like, the people who think that Peter was just nerfed to show Miles as being better, and like, I get not liking the story, but to say he was nerfed is just extremely disingenuous, and to me this shows you have no media literacy.
You have no sense of structure. You make the claim that Peter wasn't nerfed, spend a minority of your runtime actually discussing the examples, and when you do, you make arguments like, Peter wasn't thinking. Listen, try not to act condescending when every defense you've made has been completely lackluster.
Just because you didn't like the story doesn't mean it was bad.
Okay, but people have made more arguments than, I didn't like it. Can you address them?
But now, we get to a part that so many people online cite as Peter being nerfed.
Took you long enough.
This is kind of how I knew people weren't media literate, and how I knew that people didn't really think in context of character moments and feelings. So let's analyze, and I mean truly analyze, the infamous fridge scene. But before we get there, let's look at this opening scene. We heard the phone call and how it abruptly ended. You know, Peter rushes in and is probably assuming the worst here. But instead, we see MJ and Harry looking calm and collected, if not a bit tense. Peter knows he's dangerous, but Harry is just sitting there. Peter's confused. I know he doesn't want to hurt his best friend, so he's incredibly on edge right now. He just wants to talk. But once things come to a head and Venom/Harry realizes Peter won't help him, he hits him into a fridge. And obviously pretty hard because he pushed both MJ and Peter into this fridge. Now immediately upon getting hit, he tried to lurch back up, but is hit, you know, by the fridge. Now he probably didn't realize the fridge would fall. And let's take a step back here. Spider-Man feels pain, but being super strong gives you strength, not invulnerability to pain.
Dude, come on. Yes, Peter is not invulnerable, but he has super durability. The fridge shouldn't even hurt him, let alone knock him down temporarily. Peter has gotten up immediately after being tossed through a wall by Kingpin, which is a much larger impact than Peter bumping into a fridge. That is also while he was in the cloth suit, whereas the advanced suit gives him more protection.
See, I don't see how Spider-Man being pinned is such a hot topic.
Because he shouldn't be pinned by a fridge.
Think about this. His childhood best friend is a global threat, is already a citywide threat. Harry/Venom has killed earlier in this game. He threatened his girlfriend, and all Peter really feels comfortable with initially is talking to him. He doesn't want to fight him.
So because Peter doesn't want to fight him, a fridge knocks him down? Peter didn't want to fight Otto and he performed far better. Peter didn't want to fight Lee and he didn't get knocked down by a basic attack.
He's not emotionally ready for this fight.
That doesn't mean he no longer has super durability.
But with that being said, I want to take the time it counts for Peter to get back up. So it's about 12 seconds here. 12 seconds isn't that long of a time, dude.
Are you serious? You're making this even worse for yourself by counting the time. Let's count the time it takes for Peter to recover from a crane hitting him. It took him 4 seconds. Let's see how long it takes for Peter to recover from a direct blast from Mr. Negative while he has 14 broken bones and bad sleep. Wow, it took him 6 seconds if we include the slow motion. After that fight with Mr. Negative, Peter gets hit by Doc Ock and immediately is able to resist his arm for several seconds, and even throws it off after resisting. Those same arms can rip apart metal like it's nothing. Peter is inarguably nerfed during the fridge scene.
And even so, have you ever watched a TV show? Have you ever noticed when a character does something, it'll pan to another actor and then they react? Or do you think that it takes the person 5 seconds to react to whatever they were reacting to? Or are you smart enough to realize that those two scenes took place at the same time?
Peter turns his head once MJ is being brought down, and beforehand, we saw MJ held upwards with a continuous buildup of Venom's tendrils. These did not happen concurrently. Everything we saw happened in real time.
Parallel action is where the film cuts between two or more different...
This wasn't parallel action, so we can safely dismiss this tangent.
I think this scene played out more like this.
MJ is on the ground when Peter gets there. Where was Peter when she was in the air if he got up immediately? It's almost like he didn't get up immediately and is in fact nerfed.
If we're accounting for real-time reactions. I know you'll probably find some stupid argument regardless, but that's my take.
Some stupid argument? You mean like evidence?
I think most other viewpoints are disingenuous and show your real lack of media literacy, like I said.
Okay, stop saying this after you made really poorly thought out arguments.
We can absolutely debate this in the comments, but I need you to watch the whole video first before you do so.
As someone who suffered through the full video, twice, you do not need to see the full video.
To say that Peter Parker was nerfed is disingenuous.
Yeah, I had to jump to the end because he doesn't address any other examples. Let's get these final thoughts out of the way.
And again, it proves to me that the people saying this didn't pay attention.
Ironic.
Okay, so listen. Do I think Peter was nerfed? Yes and no. He was weakened, but it wasn't without reason.
You haven't given a single good reason in this video.
And I feel like if you can't get down with the story they're trying to tell, so be it. You just didn't like the story, and that's fine. That's completely fine. But all the story threads make absolute sense, and the talking points I hear for Peter being nerfed are so unintelligible, it's grating to read over and over and over again.
Your video is filled with bad arguments, bad references, bad examples, bad pacing, bad everything.
These people aren't fans of Spider-Man, they're fans of power fantasies, and anything that goes against that is just demonized.
Or, we have standards for the media we enjoy, or at least hope to enjoy.
Miles, on the other hand, isn't buffed to make Peter look bad. They're using Miles to show how much Peter needs to break. Miles isn't there yet. He's not broken. He hasn't lost as much simply because he's the newer guy on the scene, but he will get there. I can almost guarantee that. To be Spider-Man is to lose, to get hit, to get hurt. But Spider-Man always rises again, no matter what. And that's what makes Spider-Man Spider-Man.
Once again, this has nothing to do with his power scaling or base intellect.
If you still think Peter was nerfed at this point, you didn't need a YouTube video. You needed a lesson in empathy.
This statement is so detached from reality that I don't even know what to say.
Goodbye, sir. I will not even dignify that argument with a response.
I've been Never Not June. Thanks for watching.
This was really, really bad. I feel a lot of this speaks for itself, but to give a clear scope of how much I responded to versus what's in the video, I only included 15 minutes of this person's content out of the 1 hour and 8 minutes that made up the full runtime, and I was even addressing examples of the meandering earlier in my video. So to say this video was poorly structured and overall a waste of time is an understatement. I had to cut out so much just to get to the parts where the examples of nerfing are actually addressed, and these counters are really bad. If you still think these are good defenses, I don't know how, but really think about them in detail and ask yourself how much it even addresses the core criticisms being made, because these defenses really don't have much to say when you really break them down. That's all for now. Thank you for watching this video, subscribe for more, and let me know if there are any other videos you'd like me to respond to. That's all for now. See you later.